If you're not familiar with me, I'm Dr. Amy Myers. I am the New York Times bestselling author of The Autoimmune Solution and The Thyroid Connection, and the Amazon #1 bestseller, The Autoimmune Solution Cookbooks. So today, I'm going to be answering your questions about sleep here in just a minute. But I wanted to talk to you about something that literally is really near and dear to my heart, which is about sleep. How many of you guys out there raise your hands and tell me if you got a good night's sleep last night? Now, I myself have experienced times when I was hyperthyroid, I had insomnia, and more recently as I've been going through perimenopause and menopause. So last night, I actually got a really good night of sleep, and I'm gonna tell you how you too can have a good night of sleep. And I don't mean just sleeping. I mean actually deep, restorative, healing sleep, which is what we all need. You know, when we sleep, that's when our body detoxes and when it heals. And as little kids, as I tell Elle all the time, it's how you grow. So I'm going to tell you in just a minute the secret to getting that type of sleep. As I've mentioned, I've been through that insomnia when I had hyperthyroidism, and literally just kind of thinking about going to bed caused me even more anxiety. And then more recently with perimenopause, it was just sort of disruptive sleep. And then I got through another period where it was really hard, and I was definitely getting anxious just thinking about trying to go to sleep. So I've been there. I mean, which is why I'm talking to you about sleep right now and why I have the solution that I now have. It stems from my own sleep issues and wanting to solve those, as well as, of course, when I had my clinic, sleep was a huge thing that people complained about. You know, I'm always talking about food and the impact that what you eat and what you drink can have on your health, but I haven't spent quite as much time talking about how important sleep is. A lot of people talk about lack of sleep, but really we need to talk about deep restorative sleep and how absolutely important it is. So I definitely wrote about this in The Autoimmune Solution and The Thyroid Connection. But if you were tossing and turning last night, you definitely need to stay tuned to find out how you can get a good night's sleep, good restorative sleep, just like I did. So let's talk about sleep to begin with. So sleep is, like I've already mentioned, really important in clearing out toxins. So it is really when your body detoxes is when we're asleep. It's a time when we form new memories. It's a time when we learn and embed that learning into our brain. It's crucial in our metabolism and our immune function. So if you're dealing with autoimmunity, super important. And of course, mood. So our body, as many of you already know, operates on what's called a circadian rhythm, which is a 24-hour cycle of sleeping and waking, and is controlled by your brain. So your brain tells your body as the sun starts to set, oh, it's time to go to bed. The light starts getting dimmer and melatonin starts rising in your body. So this darkness clues our body in to start producing that melatonin so we can go to bed. And then when we wake up, the light is gradually supposed to wake us up and it suppresses our melatonin and then we wake up. But what's happening now that we have electricity is many of us are not going to bed when the sun goes down. And because we have computers and televisions and iPads and iPhones and all those types of things, people are spending a lot of time with this fake light. And so we're not producing the melatonin like we are supposed to be producing. So these changes in our environment really, have had a big impact on many of us in sleep. I mean, some people would argue that it's a really huge problem that is contributing to many health issues for people. I would say it's part of the problem. So certainly, I talk about this in both of my books. It is definitely part of the problem is making sure that you are getting, restorative sleep, restful sleep, and that you're relieving your stress as well. So like I mentioned, there's just a lot of time that we're spending on technology. Some studies have shown that blue light, which is the light that is emitted from your electronics, can delay melatonin release for up to a full 90 minutes. Now, some of you might experience this more than others. I know Javier can do any and everything and fall straight to sleep. I, on the other hand, need to do all kinds of various things. So about an hour, literally, I'll look at my watch and it's like, oh, time to do these things. And those are the things I'm going to tell you about here in just a minute. At the end, I'm going to give you my tips and tricks to getting a good night's sleep. So people who live in urban areas, I live in one of those. Well, I used to live downtown. Now we live in a neighborhood, but I would consider it still urban, being that it's Austin. So people who live in urban areas of 500,000 or more are exposed to nighttime lights 3 to 6 times more than people in small towns. So, when I was in the Peace Corps, I experienced this, where there were no lights. And so when the light went down, depending on what time of year it was, people were straight to bed and had no trouble sleeping there. And the most amazing stars that I ever saw. And then the roosters and the sun coming up and people wake up. And we kind of think about this as being some kind of thing that we read about in books, or I read lots of children's books with Elle. So it's some, fairy tale thing that we read about the roosters crowing and people waking up, or the sun going down and people going to sleep. But that's really what a lot of the world, at least, prior to phones, was doing. Now you can get a friggin' cell phone out in the middle of nowhere. But people are not only getting less sleep, but they're really more dissatisfied with their sleep. And that's really probably mostly what this is about. So even if you don't acknowledge or even care about the long-term health effects of not getting a good night's sleep, you might just be somebody like myself who was annoyed that they weren't getting a good night's sleep, that was somebody who used to get a good night's sleep and then suddenly wasn't getting a good night's sleep. Now, shift workers, of which I used to be one, being a former ER physician, that is really terrible on sleep. And I always say that the single best thing that I did for my health was getting out of being an ER doctor and opening my own clinic. Totally different level of stress of having your own business and clinic. And I certainly worked a lot more days and a lot harder, but I wasn't shifting between a night shift to a day shift to an afternoon shift. That was really, really wreaking havoc on my body and my circadian rhythm. And anybody out there who's doing shift work, it's likely doing that for you as well, because a fifth of us are shift workers. That's, 1 in 5 of us is a shift worker. So many of you, and maybe you're not watching this and you'll be watching it much later today, or you're sound asleep right now. But shift work can have a huge impact and disturb our circadian rhythm. So you might think, oh, I'm going to go work those 2 shifts, or I'm going to stay out late, have a couple extra drinks, and I'll catch up on the weekends. Well, catching up is really not as easy as you think. Your body doesn't really know what to do. It kind of actually can't catch up. So we have several cycles in our sleep that we pass through, or supposed to pass through, every 90 to 110 minutes, and then it starts again. So our body, you can't just sort of go catch up on your sleep. That's a little bit of a misnomer or a false idea that can happen. So let's kind of quickly talk about those stages of sleep. And I'll talk to you about something I use right here, my Oura Ring at the end, that helps me track some of those as well, because that's super fun. So stage 1 is just transitioning from being awake to being asleep. And our heart rate starts to slow, our breathing might start to slow, eye movements start to slow, and brain waves. And then your muscles begin to relax, they might even twitch. And you're supposed to be in stage 1 for about 5-10 minutes. Javier's in it for like a nanosecond, maybe literally less than a minute. Now that I do what I'm going to tell you about, I'm in it for definitely 5 minutes or less, which is great, because there were times when I was 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. Those of you out there, raise your hands. Stage 2 is the second stage, of course, and that's called light sleep. So your heartbeat and your breathing are even slower, your temperature's likely to drop, and your eye movements also stop. So your brain waves continue to slow down, but you might experience some burst of electrical activities in your brain. Now, these stage 2 can last anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. Now, stage 3 is really the most important stage, and this is where your breathing and your heart rate are really at their lowest. And this is like deep sleep. So this is the restorative phase. And, we should be in this, I have to remember for my Oura Ring, I think it's like between around 25 to 30% of your sleep should be in this deep restorative sleep. And, there are new tracking devices. I found it really interesting to have one and wear one, and I'll talk in the end about that, to really see what kind of sleep you're getting. Back in the day when these devices were just coming out, I don't think they were super indicative or great at really tracking that. They seem to have gotten a lot better. And then, of course, there is REM sleep, which is your rapid eye movement sleep, which is where most of your dreaming occurs. So I have really intense, deep REM sleep, and I tend to have more REM sleep, and I love REM sleep. So, all those great dreams that you can have. So your eyes begin to move quickly from side to side. Your breath might get faster. Your heart rate or blood pressure might increase. I guess it also depends on what you're dreaming about. And that can occur within the first 90 minutes of falling asleep. And then you're supposed to go through these stages throughout cycling through, as I already mentioned, about every 90 to 110 minutes. So you might be going from deep sleep to REM sleep to light sleep to deep sleep to REM sleep to light sleep, that kind of thing. And so that's supposed to be happening throughout the night. So what happens if you're not actually getting into that deep restorative stage 3 of sleep? Well, a lot of things can happen to you. The next day, and many of you might already notice some of these things, you might be less alert. Your ability to focus could be lower. You might have impaired memory because the fatigue is affecting your ability to remember and process information. You might have more conflicts because you have more irritability or moodiness. You might be less likely to socialize, less likely to exercise, so maybe less likely to stick to a habit, right? You get more short fuse, so you're not as likely to stick to the Myers way. You might indulge in more carbs or sugars. You might get in more fights with your partner. You might be more irritable. So 70% are more likely to be involved in a workplace accident than someone who is well rested. So super important, particularly if you're the night nurse who just wrote in, if you're somebody doing, working with machines, needs to drive, after, before or after, well, we all probably need to drive to work, but if driving is part of your job, you have a greater likelihood of getting in a car accident. So the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration estimates that 90,000 police reported crashes involve drowsy drivers. This is a really terrible thing to say or remember, but I remember when I was in residency, a friend of mine actually drove home after his shift that he was supposed to be working, drowsy, fell asleep, and got in a very terrible car accident. So this is real, folks. I mean, I know someone that this happened with. So these crashes lead to an estimated 41,000 people injured and 800 deaths. So really, really important to be getting our restorative sleep. You could tend to be uncoordinated, which of course can almost look like you're drunk. I mean, I think the studies have really come out about people working long hours, like things like, doctor training. It's equivalent to drinking 1 or 2 beers. So it is even worse than you being intoxicated is not getting a good night's sleep. So super duper important. So UCLA did a study that showed that 1 beer has the same impact on a person as someone who only got 4 hours of sleep. So somebody who got well rested could have 6 beers, and somebody who only got 4 hours of sleep can only have 1 beer. So if you continue to be sleep deprived, if you're not getting a good night's sleep, if you're not getting that restorative sleep that we all need, it can lead to health issues like high blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, type 2 diabetes, obesity, depression, decreased sex drive, leaky gut, basically lots of things that you don't want, and chronic health conditions. So we're getting to the place, and I can answer your questions here shortly, but we're getting to the place where I'm going to tell you about what I do. So after I started having sleep issues, I did a lot of research and talked to lots of patients and tried a lot of things out on them and tried a lot of things out on myself. So already, if you're following the Myers way, you're not drinking caffeine or coffee. But if you're not, of course, caffeine, you don't want to be drinking that, particularly late in the day, unless you're my husband, because he can drink a cup of coffee and go to bed. So everybody out there probably wishes they were my husband because he doesn't get affected by anything. even my ornery self sometimes. So don't drink coffee. Don't have caffeine. So instead, have some tea. Have chamomile tea, tulsi tea, lemon balm, passion flower, and sip it before bed. You can, if it's getting warm in your area like it is here, maybe you don't want hot tea like you did in the winter. So make some hot tea and let it cool off, and then have some iced tea at night. Alcohol. Also, if you're following the Myers way, you're probably not drinking alcohol, or you're drinking minimal amounts. But if not, definitely save the alcohol for special occasions. It definitely affects your REM sleep. I know I rarely drink, but if I do have a drink, I am like up for hours. I cannot go to bed. So every time I do, I'm like, oh, stop, Javier, don't ever let me do that again. But of course, it happens again. I'm just like you guys, no better over here. Have my, fall prey to things myself as well. Now, my relaxing ritual at night is a bath. Now, that has gotten a little crowded these days, let me just say. So my ritual and what I write about in all my books, which were before Elle arrived, was a nice, hot, relaxing bath with some Epsom salts. Now that bath has turned into a bubble bath with a 2-year-old who likes to, I swim in. And I'm like, you can swim in the tub, but no crazy swimming, which is where she's slipping and flopping and splashing. So last night, Javier put her to bed, even though we took a bath together. She and I did, but he took her off to bed, and I did get to have a relaxing half a bath last night to myself, which was so wonderful. So find your own bedtime ritual. Mine is a bath, or as we've already heard, not so much these days, reading, sauna. I have something called the David Delight that I write about in the Thyroid Connection, which is binaural beats, essentially, to help affect my brain waves. So I do that. Heart rate variability, I try to do that in the morning and the evening through Heart Math. There's an app you can get for the iPhone. I write all about all of this in the Thyroid Connection. So have a full list of, lots of information there. And sticks to a schedule. So it kind of stinks, back in the day before I was married, and then certainly before we had a baby, it was, anything went, go to bed at whatever hour, sort of get up whenever. But now that we have a baby who has to go to school, kind of can't do that anymore. So 10 o'clock is my bedtime. So at 9, well, really at 8 now with her with the bath, or before that bath. My bath also used to happen at about 9 o'clock at night, and now my bath is happening at 6:30. So maybe I need to change that routine or take 2 baths in a night. Anyway, so, but the rest of this that I'm going to talk to you about really starts around 8 o'clock after we put her to bed. Although one of the main things that I talk about that I'm going to tell you about right now, which is these funny little things, amber glasses. So these block out the blue light wavelength. So I put these on, well, in fact, around 6, when the light starts to change in the house, we have amber light bulbs that you can get off of Amazon. And I put, those are in all our lamps. So around 6, I turn the whole house over to amber. Elle even has amber lights in her room. So if you ever see a picture on Instagram of me doing something in her room, like reading a story or her teepee at night, you'll see that it's really amber or orange looking. It's because we have amber lights pretty much everywhere in the house. So I do that. And then if I'm reading, if I need to look at my computer, if I'm looking at my phone, or even if we're watching a movie or TV, I wear these amber glasses along with having the amber lights in my house. So this really is one of my number one. So I have like a 1-2 punch. This is my one punch to helping set the tone, to help that melatonin begin to start be secreted and produced and elevated. So this is probably the first thing that I do. Having a good time that you really do turn off all electronics, even the TV. And my next one that I do is we have blackout curtains in the room. So that's super duper important. And if I travel and there's not blackout curtains wherever we're staying, I have an eye mask that I wear, and that is crucial. But the blackout curtains, we don't have any electronics in the room. And anything, we do have a HEPA filter in the room. So I shut the lights off. And if I'm ever in a hotel and there are all these lights, I just cover them all up with towels. I, of course, unplug any electronics that I can when I'm traveling. And then I have my amber glasses, and then I put on the eye mask. And then now that I'm in perimenopause, probably menopause now, since I haven't had a period in a while, is that I turn down the AC super duper low, because I get a few hot flashes in the middle of the night and I get really warm. So Javier has like 3 covers on and I have 1 cover, and I'm constantly throwing it off and have the AC turned down super low. So not quite this low, but the ideal temperature that they say is between 60 and 67 degrees. I put it down to 70 or 71. And then of course in the winter, we don't put the heat on. I leave it at 68 degrees. So 68 is where it gets in the winter in our house, and about 70 in the summer. So got to be careful about that and those bills. And then I mentioned to you guys that I've been wearing an Aura ring here. So Aura is considered a smart device. If you're super worried about it, I don't do this. I probably should, but you can put it on airplane mode to where it's not tracking anything during the day, and then just sync it at night. I tried to do that for a while, and it just takes a really long time to sync. And so I don't do that. I actually let it, be the Bluetooth, but my phone's turned off at night. So when I'm sleeping, it's not beaming to the Bluetooth because I'm sleeping and my phone is turned off at night. So I do put my phone in airplane mode at night. I don't put the ring in airplane mode. But if you're super concerned about it, definitely you can put that in airplane mode. So this really tracks activity for you, but one of the heart rate variability for you, and one of the main things it does is also sleep. So I've been using it for sleep as I was having some sleep issues. That's why I got it. So it's been super helpful for me in tracking that. But the main thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about today is a very new product that I recently formulated because I was having these sleep issues, and it's amazing. And so I wanted to tell you about it. Our VIPs, if you're a member of our rewards points program, and if you're not, you should be, because every time you purchase from us, you get reward points that can be translated into dollars or products. And so there's some people who qualify for the Ultra VIP, so there are 3 different tiers. And so they got early access to this because we were pretty sure, when I first launch a product, I custom manufacture these products. So I design them myself, formulate them myself, and then, get them made through GMP certified manufacturers. And we always, whenever I launch a product, we only order a minimal amount of bottles just to make sure that everybody likes the product before we launch something. But let me tell you about Rest and Restore and what makes it so great. So one of the main things, and we have it right on the front, actually down Optimal Sleep Cycle, is that these are all natural ingredients, as you would expect from me. It doesn't create any next day drowsiness, and it's non-addicting or habit forming. So what is in the Rest and Restore is pharmaceutical grade magnesium, GABA, and L-Theanine. So this combination of these 3, and I'll get into what each of them do, really helps to support a relaxed mood, a healthy sleep cycle, and most importantly, that restorative deep sleep. Hence, we called it Rest and Restore, because just getting sleep is one thing, but getting restorative sleep is another thing. The magnesium, as many of you already know from magnesium, helps to relax your muscles. So it's involved in over 300 chemical reactions, and that, along with glycine, act as a neurotransmitter. So the magnesium is a magnesium glycinate, and so it acts as a neurotransmitter inhibitor in the brain. So it helps to create a calm and relaxed mood, a good sense of well-being, and helps to give you that healthy, good night restorative sleep. GABA really is the biggest player in this supplement. So I used Pharma GABA, and Pharma GABA really helps to it's a registered trademark, Pharma GABA. And the studies show that it crosses the blood-brain barrier, so it gets into your brain where you need it. And so, it gets absorbed and used where it needs, which is in your brain. And so GABA helps to produce alpha brain waves, which are the ones that give you a profound sense of relaxation right before you go to bed. And then L-Theanine, which comes from green tea leaves, and we use decaffeinated green tea leaves, helps also to promote those alpha brain waves. So this also gives you that state of calm. And so this combination is really a great combination to help get you to sleep and keep you to sleep and get you in that just restorative deep sleep without you feeling hungover or drowsy the next day. And like I said, it's non-habit forming. So for anybody who, like me, is prior to, I was, but I am no longer having sleep issues. So if anybody like me is having sleep issues, probably want to give Rest and Restore a try. We have it where you start off with 1 pill a night, and then if you need 2, you can take 2 pills, but definitely start with just 1. I think somebody here at the office, when they tried it, overslept. So I want everybody to have a good night's sleep, just like I did, restorative sleep. I want you all to heal from whatever condition you are, maintain optimal health if that's the boat that you're in. And so come join me in trying out Rest and Restore. So you can go to amymd.io/rest and get your Rest and Restore. And don't forget, all of my supplements come with a 30-day return guarantee. So if you have any problems, we're here.